You can cool a building with a pipe in the ground. No compressor, no refrigerant, no meter spinning on the side of the wall. 74 degrees of air coming out of the dirt on a 96-degree afternoon. 22 degrees off the outside air. Every hour of every day for nothing. It is called a Canadian well or an earth tube, and it is entirely real. It has been built for a very long time, and there is nothing clever or modern about it. But there is one thing about it that almost nobody who films these ever tells you. One thing that decides whether it cools your house or grows something under your yard and pipes it into your bedroom. So today, the whole build in order. The intake, the pipe, the depth, the slope, the drain, the wall, the fan, and the maintenance. What it costs. And the arithmetic that tells you in about a week whether this will work where you live or whether you should build a different version of it. Nothing here is for sale. No book, no plans, no links. But before any of it, one thing that comes first, and it is not optional. Before you put a spade or a trencher into your ground, find out what is already buried in it. In the United States, you dial 811. It is free, it is a national number, and in most states it is the law. You call, you tell them where you intend to dig, and within a couple of working days, somebody comes out and paints your gas, electric, water, sewer, and communications lines on the grass. People are killed every year striking a gas line with a machine. A walk behind. Trencher does not know what it is cutting, and it does not stop. Whatever else you take from this video, take that. Call first, wait for the marks, and dig by hand within a couple of feet of anything they painted. And while you are on the telephone, ring your building department and ask whether what you are planning needs a permit. Coring a hole through a foundation wall and bringing outside air into a dwelling is often permit work. That is a 5-minute call that can save you a great deal of trouble later, particularly if you ever sell the house. Right. Now, what the thing actually does, it takes outside air, pulls it through a buried pipe, and hands it back to you at roughly the temperature of the dirt surrounding that pipe. That is the entire trick. There is nothing else to it. In most of this country, the soil 3 or 4 feet down sits within about 5 degrees of your town's average yearly air temperature, and it barely moves all summer. So, on a 100-degree day, the ground does not care. It is still sitting where it sits, and it will cool that air for you with no moving parts and no bill. And here is precisely what it does not do. It does not dry the air, it does the opposite. Cooling air without wringing it out raises the humidity of that air. And if you cool it far enough, water begins forming on the inside of the pipe. Everything difficult about this system comes out of that one sentence, and we are going to spend real time on it, because that is the part that turns a good idea into a health problem. Now the money, roughly, and prices move, so treat these as a shape rather than a quote. Solid wall pipe in 6-inch, 100 feet of it, is the largest single item. Fittings, a couple of cleanouts, a grate, and some hardware cloth add a modest amount on top. An inline duct fan runs from very little for a small one to a few times, that for a squirrel cage that genuinely moves air. And a walk behind trencher is a day rental. Call the whole thing a long weekend and a few $100s if you do the digging yourself. Considerably more if somebody else digs it. Now the build in the order you would actually do it. Start with the intake, because everybody gets this wrong and it costs nothing to get right. Your intake wants to be on the north side of the building if you are in the United States. That is your shaded side. Under a tree if you have one, near shrubs and ground cover if you have them. Because shade and growing plants both pull the local air temperature down a few degrees before that air ever enters your pipe. And a few degrees at the front end is a few degrees you do not have to ask the dirt for. Never over blacktop. Never over gravel, never on the sunny side of a wall, never near a dryer vent, a flue, a generator, or where you park a vehicle. Never near where somebody runs a mower. You are going to breathe every cubic foot of this. Side it like you mean it. Bring the intake up out of the ground at least 2 feet, and 3 is better. That keeps splash, mulch, leaves, and grass clippings out of it. Put a hood or a turn-down elbow over the top, so rain cannot fall straight in. Then 1/4-inch hardware cloth over the opening, and behind that a finer insect screen. Skip the screen and you will be running an insect hotel with a pipe attached. Make both of those removable without tools if you possibly can, because you will be cleaning them, and anything that needs a screwdriver on a ladder tends not to get cleaned. One more thing at the intake worth doing, and it is not in most builds. Fit A. Simple filter housing you can slip a pleated filter into. It catches pollen, dust, and spores before they enter the pipe rather than after, and it means the inside of your pipe stays cleaner for longer. Change it a couple of times a season. Now the pipe itself, and here I am going to argue with a great deal of what you have seen. Use solid wall, smooth wall, sealed joint pipe. Sewer and drain pipe or HDPE. 6-inch minimum for a single room. 8-inch if you are feeding a house and the trench will allow it. Do not use perforated field tile. Do not use flexible corrugated drain pipe with holes in it. And do not build a little masonry tunnel out of brick and tile scrap and pour dirt over it, however handsome it looks when it is finished. Here is the problem with all three. Anything with holes in it, or joints you cannot seal, is a straw into the soil, and the soil contains more than cool. It contains water, it contains insects, and it contains radon gas, and you cannot clean any of it. 20 feet in, 3 years from now, you will never get a brush through a brick tunnel with a bend in it. The rule is simple, and it has never failed me. If you cannot clean it, do not build it. Smooth wall matters for a second reason people miss. Corrugated pipe has ridges, and ridges hold water and dirt and give things a place to sit. Smooth wall lets a brush pass and lets condensate run. Now depth and slope, and the depth question is where most projects die before they start. You will hear that it must be 6 feet or 8 or 2 meters, and that if you cannot get there, you should not bother. That is wrong. What actually decides how much this cools is how much pipe wall the air touches, and for how long. Surface area and travel time. Narrow 4-inch pipe 6 feet down will cool less air than a fat 8-inch pipe 3 feet down, because the fat one has more wall and the air moves through it more slowly. Deeper soil is more stable, and that is a genuine advantage in spring and autumn. But depth is the last variable I would chase, not the first. Get diameter, get length, get depth if the digging is easy. 2 feet is a working minimum. 3 to 4 is a good target if your soil and your water table allow it. If you have shallow bedrock or a high water table, you may be out of luck for the full-sized version, and I will come to what you build instead. Now the part that matters more than depth. The entire run has to fall continuously in one direction, one slope. No dips, no bellies, no low spots. A 1/4 inch of fall per foot is plenty. An 1/8 will do if you are careful about it. Water is going to form inside that pipe. Water is going to go somewhere. The only question you get to answer is whether it goes where you chose, or where it wants. Where it should go is away from the building, down to a gravel sump, or better still out to daylight on the low side of the lot. There is a neat way of doing this. Bring the intake down into a T rather than an elbow. Run the branch of that T toward the house, and let the bottom of the T drop straight into a small drainage pit underneath the intake. Then slope the buried run back toward that pit, against the direction of the airflow. So every drop of condensate walks backward down the pipe and falls out of the system at the far end from your house. That costs nothing but paying attention while you backfill, and it works. Cleanouts put a capped access at both ends. Every one of these that has ever gone bad has gone bad because nobody could get inside it. You want to be able to run a drain brush or a soaked rag on a fish tape from one end to the other once a year and see what comes out. While we are on maintenance, here is the schedule because nobody ever gives you one. Screens and filter, check monthly through the season. Run a brush through the pipe once a year, at the end of the humid season rather than the start. Check that the condensate outlet is still running clear and has not silted up or been colonized by something. And look at the intake hood after any storm. Now the wall penetration. Core or hammer a hole through the block or the stem wall. Sleeve the pipe through it and seal the annular space properly. Expanding foam to fill. Then mortar or hydraulic cement over the outside face. If you are cutting through a poured foundation wall or anything structural, that is the point to get advice from somebody who does it for a living. A hole in the wrong place in a load-bearing wall is not a thing you fix afterwards. Terminate it into a proper register with a damper you can close, mounted low on the wall. Low matters. Cool air is heavy and it wants to lie down. Let it. The damper is not optional either, and here is why. There will be months when you do not want this running. And an open pipe into your house when the system is off is an uncontrolled hole in your building envelope. Now the fan, convection alone will move air. If you have a good tall exhaust path, a gable vent, a turbine, a solar chimney on a hot roof, it will move more than you would guess. Because here is the engine, and most people have it backwards. Cold does not rise out of the ground. Cold is not a thing that goes anywhere. Heat is the thing that moves and hot air climbs. When hot air leaves the top of your house, it leaves a hole behind, and something has to come and fill it. If the easiest path in is a buried pipe, then the ground fills it. You are not pushing cold anywhere. You are letting heat leave and choosing where the replacement comes from. But I will be straight with you, every one of these works better with a fan. A small inline duct booster pulls 15 or 20 watts, which is less than a light bulb. Put it near the house end so it pulls air through the pipe rather than pushing it. Put it on a switch you can reach, and put a backdraft damper downstream of it so the pipe does not run in reverse when the fan is off. Now the science in plain language, because this is where you find out whether any of it applies to you. Soil takes a long time to change temperature. Few feet down it sits close to your town's average annual air temperature for the whole year, give or take about 5 degrees. Look up your town's yearly average temperature and you have a decent estimate of what this will hand you. In some places that is the low 70s. In Denver it is closer to 50. In Minnesota it is in the 40s. That number is your ceiling and your floor both, and it is the first thing to check before you rent anything. Here is the second number, and it is the one that gets left out of every video on this subject. Air holds water, and there is a temperature at which the air you have cannot hold it any longer and starts letting it go. That is the dew point. On a humid summer day in the deep south, the dew point runs in the low to mid-70s. Now put those two numbers side by side. If your soil is in the mid-70s and your summer dew point is in the mid-70s, then running that air through that pipe cools it down to precisely the temperature at which it starts giving up its water. And then it rains inside your pipe. That is not a flaw in the build. That is arithmetic. The pipe is doing its job perfectly and the air is doing what air does. And a pipe that stays wet in the dark at 75 degrees is a growing medium. Whatever sets up in there does not stay in there. It rides the air into the room. That is not drama. It is the single most common reason these systems get abandoned. And it is why a good many designers recommend against them outright in hot, humid places. There is one more thing, and I do not want you to skip it. The ground produces radon. It is a gas released by the natural breakdown of radium in soil and rock. You cannot see it or smell it. And according to the Environmental Protection Agency, it is the leading cause of lung cancer in people who have never smoked. A buried pipe with open joints or perforations running into a house is an excellent path for that gas. That is the real reason to be strict about sealed solid wall pipe. And whether or not you ever build one of these, test your house for radon. A kit is inexpensive, and many county health departments hand them out free. Test after any work like this, and test again a couple of years later. So who is this actually for? If you live where summers are hot and dry, the Southwest, the high desert, the Mountain West, inland California, much of Texas away from the Gulf, eastern Washington and Oregon, this is close to a free lunch. Your dew point sits 30 or 40 degrees below your afternoon high. The soil cools your air and condenses very little. Build it and build it generously. If you live in the upper Midwest, New England, or the mountains, this is a shoulder season tool and a fresh air preconditioner. It takes the edge off June and September, and in winter it tempers incoming makeup air, which is a genuine benefit people forget. Worth doing, particularly if you are already excavating for something else. And if you live where the summer dew point sits in the 70s, the Gulf Coast, Florida, the Deep South, here is the honest answer. Do not run an untreated pipe into a bedroom. Not into a room where somebody sleeps 8 hours a night with the door shut. The temperature drop is real, but you are delivering saturated air and keeping the inside of that pipe wet from spring to autumn. What you build instead is exactly the same thing, aimed somewhere that can take it. A workshop, a garage, a well house or pump house, a greenhouse, a chicken coop, somewhere air moves through and out, where 105 degrees is the actual problem, and a little humidity is nobody's enemy. If you do want it in the house in a humid climate, you build the treated version. Sealed solid pipe, generous continuous slope, condensate daylighting outside the wall, real cleanouts at both ends, a filter at the intake, a damper you can shut, and a switch so you run it in the dry months and shut it down in the wet ones. That is a real system. It is more work than a weekend trench, and it is the difference between a good idea and a mistake you sleep in. Now here's what I would do this week, and none of it involves digging. First, call 811 and get your utilities marked, even if you are only thinking about it. It is free and the marks last a while. Second, dig one hole 3 feet deep, anywhere in the shade, wide enough for your arm. Drop a cheap thermometer to the bottom on a string, cover the hole with a board, and leave it overnight. Read it at 3 in the afternoon the next day. That number is what this will give you at your house. It costs a few dollars in an hour, and it is better information than any calculator online. Third, open the weather app on your phone and find the dew point, not the humidity percentage. The dew point in degrees, write it down every afternoon for a week. If it runs 15 or 20 degrees below your hole in the ground number, you are clear to build. If it sits on top of that number or above it. You now know exactly what you are dealing with, and you build the workshop version or the treated version. Fourth, ring your local pipe yard and ask what 100 feet of 6-inch solid wall sewer and drain pipe costs today. Ask about 8-inch as well. That one call turns this from a daydream into a number on paper. Fifth, ask your county health department about a radon test kit. And sixth, walk your north side and choose your intake spot. Shade, plants away from the drive, away from the dryer vent, high enough off the ground. Drive a stake in it. Tell me in the comments where you live and what your summer dew point runs. The state and the number. That one figure decides everything about this system, and almost nobody knows theirs. And the rule that matters most here. Water always wins, and the only choice you get is where it wins. You either give it a path out or it finds one, and the one it finds is always through something you care about. Give it the path. Slope the pipe, drain it away from the building, and put a cap on both ends you can open.